All right, so we're diving deep today, folks, and let me tell you, this one's a real heartbreaker.
Yeah, definitely a tough one.
The Boy in the Box. It's one of those mysteries, just, it gets under your skin. A young boy abandoned his identity a mystery for decades, and well, it's about time we try and unpack it.
It's a story that just captures your imagination, doesn't it? I mean, how could this happen? How can a child just vanish like that? It's a question that just stays with you.
It's February 1957 in Philadelphia. Imagine, a chilly morning, you're walking through the woods in Fox Chase, checking your animal traps, and boom, you come across this discarded bassinet box.
Can't imagine what was going through that poor guy's mind.
Inside, the body of a young boy, just left there. He becomes known as the Boy in the Box, a name that haunts the city and honestly the country to this day.
And it just grabs you, doesn't it? The idea of this unknown child left alone like that.
So let's lay out what we know. The boy, they estimated him to be between 3 and 7 years old, found naked, his hair neatly combed, wrapped in a simple flannel blanket. There were signs of malnourishment, bruises, just awful. Clearly this little guy had suffered.
It's those little details that get to me, like whoever left him there had washed his body, even given him a haircut. Why bother with that if you're trying to just dump a body?
Yeah.
Makes you wonder, right? What was going through their mind?
Exactly. It's like a weird mix of cruelty and, I don't know, some strange kind of care, even in death.
Right. It's bizarre.
And the mystery deepens with the box itself, a bassinet box of all things, and that blanket. Investigators tried so hard tracing them, hoping for a lead, but it all just fizzled out. Dead ends.
And think about it, back then, they didn't have the fancy DNA tech we have now. They were working with fingerprints, maybe some basic blood typing if they were lucky.
Talk about a tough case. So for years, they're grasping at straws. Then in 2002, a woman, we'll call her M, comes forward claiming her mother abused and killed a boy who matched the description. Apparently, she'd witnessed it as a child.
This is where it gets really interesting, but also really messy. M's testimony, it was detailed, she remembered a lot, but there were these inconsistencies. For example, she described a very specific surgical scar the boy had, but it wasn't there on the body.
Oh, man. So close, and yet...
And on top of that, M, she had a history of mental health issues. Now, that doesn't automatically make her story false,
Yeah.
but it adds another layer of complexity to an already incredibly complex case.
Right, you got to be careful, especially with something this delicate. You need solid evidence, not just a compelling story. And unfortunately, that's kind of the theme with this case. Leads pop up, they fizzle out. But there's another theory, one that's pretty disturbing.
Yeah, the idea that the boy was a victim of trafficking or maybe caught up in some kind of larger abuse ring, it's a thought that sends chills down your spine.
It really does.
And, as horrible as it is to think about, it's something we can't just ignore. The signs of abuse, they're there.
Yeah.
And it reminds us, sadly, that these kinds of horrors, they've been happening for a long time.
Yeah, makes you think, doesn't it? But there's a little bit of hope, at least recently. You mentioned the lack of technology back then, but in 2022, they exhumed the boy's body for DNA analysis.
That's right, finally a chance to use the tools of the 21st century on this case. DNA testing, it's revolutionized how we approach these cold cases. The idea is to create a DNA profile, then run it through all these genealogical databases, hoping for a hit. It's like building a family tree in reverse, starting with the unknown.
So are we any closer to finding out who he was?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? DNA, it's a powerful tool, but it's not a magic bullet. We might find relatives, distant cousins maybe, and that could lead to his identity. Or we might get more questions, more dead ends. It's a waiting game now.
Man, what a story. So as we wrap up here, it feels almost wrong to say wrap up, because with the boy in the box, there are still so many loose ends.
Exactly. It's like those Russian nesting dolls. You open one, thinking you've got it figured out, but there's another one inside, another and another. We might never know for sure who he was, where he came from, or who took him from this world.
It's heartbreaking. This little boy, all alone. But even if the answers never come, at least he's not forgotten. People still care.
They do. And I think that says something. Maybe that's the most important takeaway from all of this. That even decades later, we still haven't given up on him. We still want answers. We still want justice. And as long as people keep asking questions, keep searching, then maybe, just maybe, his story can serve as a reminder to protect the most vulnerable among us.
To the ones who can't speak for themselves. Well
Yeah.
said. All right, folks. That's our deep dive for today. Join us next time when we'll tackle another fascinating and often frustrating mystery from the past.
Looking forward to it.